All right. So, since we're not meeting in person on July the 5th, so that everybody can celebrate the 4th of July, I am pre recording some little commentary on each day's reading. So, I'll do it in a few goes just because it's a lot. So, Sunday starts in 2 Kings chapter 19. And so I'm going to share my screen. All right, share. There we go. All right, so Hezekiah, who is a good king, has, again, as I shared on Sunday, I think chapter 18, 19 is just a really good story about how to handle spiritual warfare, because the predominant method, of the enemy's attacks is through lies and intimidation, like really words. And so we saw in chapter 18 that the king of Assyria has sent this guy who's just talking a bunch of trash, like Goliath was. And now we're picking it up in chapter 19. And I love this because if you remember, chapter 18 ended with the people did not respond. They stayed silent. Not responding to the enemy. He's not even worth our time and energy. We're not going to engage him in conversation. Instead of engaging him in conversation, what does King Hezekiah do? He goes and engages the Lord in conversation. He goes straight to the temple of the Lord. I'm not going to talk to the enemy. I'm going to talk to Yahweh. And not only that, but he sends messengers to the prophet Isaiah and asks for prayer. And I love that also. Like, you don't have to do it alone. Like the whole thing we say every week, like there's a prayer team up front. Like, why would you try to do it alone? You don't have to do it alone. And so Isaiah is going to respond to this request for prayer with prophecy. And so he speaks the word of the Lord and says, do not be afraid of these words that the enemy has spoken. Do not be afraid of the words of the enemy. And so they actually receive an additional letter that continues to harass them, say this and that to the king Hezekiah, like no country has ever succeeded in being saved by any of their gods. What would make you think that your God is any different? And again, his response is perfect. He receives the letter, he reads it, and he goes straight to the temple. And I love this. He spreads it out before the Lord. I had a spiritual director once, and it was during a really difficult season of my life. And she taught me the best tool, and I still use it to this day. And it's kind of like what Hezekiah did, to just come and spread it out before the Lord and just say, okay, God, what are you going to do about that? Like, I don't have any power, but you do. So what are you going to do about that? And so Hezekiah asked the Lord to hear, give ear, hear, open your eyes, see, listen to these evil things that this dude is saying. And then he says, it actually is true, just to be honest, God, that no other nation has succeeded in being saved from the Assyrians before. But it's because their gods are not real gods. They're just wood and stone. So you are the real God. So deliver us, please. Please deliver us. And then in response to this, the prophet Isaiah has this long prophecy that he pronounces against Sennacherib, against the kingdom of Assyria. You lifted your eyes in pride. Again, a lot of similarity here between this evil rhetoric of Sennacherib and Goliath, just talking trash, ridiculing, blaspheming God. And he's like, you are going to pay for that. So just FYI, you will not win. And then Isaiah prophesies for Hezekiah that even though the situation looks very grim right now, that actually Judah's gonna survive a little bit longer. They're gonna get food and they're going to survive. But Sennacherib will not, and they won't even be able to come into Jerusalem. None of that's going to happen. And in fact, that night, an angel of the Lord comes and kills 85,000 of them. That's insane. And then Sennacherib is killed while worshiping at his idolatrous temple. So Hezekiah's faith pays off. Okay, now, next, chapter 20, Hezekiah is sick, and Isaiah comes and tells him, hey, you're going to die, so prepare yourself. And Hezekiah says, Lord, please, have mercy on me, let me live longer. And God agrees to add 15 years to his life. Now, this is really important. Put that in your pocket. You'll need that in a minute. So Hezekiah gets to live longer, and he does this whole thing with figs, and then proof by the shadow that's going to go back down the stairs instead of whatever direction shadows go on stairs. So, but kind of like the fleece, with Gideon, there's this additional proof. I mean, the proof is that he's going to live longer, but he wanted additional proof, and God was kind enough to give it to him. So now, in these 15 extra years of life that Hezekiah gets, he's going to do one really stupid thing and then something else that's going to have terrible repercussions. So here he has these guests who come from Babylon. And at this time, Babylon is not yet the power that it is soon to become. They haven't risen to the place where they're going to overtake the Assyrian kingdom. And so Hezekiah, I guess, doesn't realize what the threat could be. And so while they're there visiting, he shows them every single solitary thing that, like all of the riches, all of the treasure of the kingdom of Judah. And Isaiah's like, yo, what did you show them? And he's like, I showed them everything. And he's like, bro, as a result of you doing that, everything that you showed them, you're going to lose. Like, all of that's going to be taken away. Not only you, but not only that stuff, but your descendants. Like, they'll actually become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Now, this is crazy. His response, Hezekiah, is, the word of the Lord you have spoken is good. What? How is that good? That's like 0% good. But he's like, because there'll be security and peace in my lifetime. Like, how selfish is that? He's like, well, as long as it happens to my descendants and not to me, then I'm cool with that. Like, that is not cool. Okay, so again, I said to put it in your pocket that he got 15 extra years of life. Well, Manasseh, his son, succeeds him as king. And we see in the next chapter, Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king. This means that Manasseh was conceived during that 15-year period that Hezekiah was supposed to be dead. So if Hezekiah would have accepted God's timeline for his death, Manasseh would have never been born. So it's interesting, just like, if we had the ability to see an alternative timeline, what would have happened to the kingdom of Judah if Hezekiah would have accepted his fate, just believing, hey, God is the Lord of the universe. He knows when is the right time for me to die. If Manasseh had not been born, would everything have happened like it did? I don't know. I mean, they were I mean, it seems like for the gospel to take place the way that it did, the timeline of Jesus, it seems like it kind of had to play out that way. But you just wonder what if Hezekiah had accepted God's, timeline for him? Well, he did not. He got his 15 extra years. And as a result, Manasseh is conceived. And this guy is really, really bad. And we've got this list of horrible things. Idolatry. Not only is he worshiping idols, but he's actually converting the temple of God into a pagan temple. So it is no longer a place of worship of Yahweh. It's used to worship the starry host. He sacrificed his own son, witchcraft, much evil. He took this astral pole and put it inside the temple. So he's totally desecrated the temple. It's super gross. And he's not only done that himself, but he's led the people to this behavior. And so he's really a terrible king, a terrible leader. And God pronounces judgment. Therefore, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: I am going to bring such disaster on Jerusalem and Judah that the ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. And then he just, pronounces judgment. I'm not going to let that happen. Manasseh was also very violent, killed lots of people, not a good guy. Manasseh dies. This dude Amon becomes king, who is also evil, worshiping idols, forsaking Yahweh, and he is assassinated. Upon his assassination, Josiah becomes king. And even though Manasseh and Amon were evil, this kid, Josiah, is a really wonderful king. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord and followed completely the ways of his father, not his actual father, but his forefather, not turning aside to the right or to the left. Okay, so he talks to the high priest, Hilkiah, and says, okay, we've got to fix the temple. The temple has been desecrated and has been neglected and falling apart. So let's get all this money and let's take care of it and let's begin to fix it up. And while they're fixing it up, Hilkiah says that they've found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord. Seems like scripture has been lost to them. So they did not even know what it said. So because they didn't have access to the word of God, they kept just drifting further and further and further and further from God's words. So this secretary reads it in the presence of the king. And obviously in hearing it is whoa, we are really departed from God's word. We're not at all doing what it says. And as he hears it, he tears his robe and he says, oh my gosh, I need you to go find prophets and find out, inquire to the Lord for me about what is written in this book. What we have not been doing. We have not acted in accordance with what is written there. What are we supposed to do? Please talk to prophets and find out, what do we do? And they go and they find this prophet Huldah. And I just think this is so cool because this is at the time of Isaiah. This is at the time of, I think, maybe Jeremiah was alive at this time. I'd have to look at I have a timeline, but other major male prophets lived during this time. But instead of inquiring to them, they inquire to this woman, Prophet Huldah. And Prophet Huldah says, well, yeah, you're right. You guys have not at all been living according to what's written in this book. And as a result, you've broken the covenant. And because you've broken the covenant, everything is going to be laid waste. However, because when you saw that you guys were off, you were responsive and you humbled yourself, because you tore your robes and you wept in my presence. None of this is going to happen during your lifetime. You're going to be buried in peace. Your eyes will not see the disaster that's taking place. So, judgment is still going to happen, but God is honoring Josiah's humility and his repentance and his desire to be a good king and to do the right thing. And even though judgment is still going to come, Josiah is going to move forward in goodness and rightness anyway. So in chapter 23, he's going to have everybody from Judah come and sit and listen to the whole Bible. Now, of course, the whole Bible at this time is only the first 5 books, the Pentateuch, and then maybe they have Samuel at this time. I assume that they for sure have the Pentateuch, the book of the covenant with, the laws. They're going to read it out loud to everybody. And then as they read it, they renew the covenant to follow those commands. So the same thing we saw with Moses. Everybody is agreeing to the terms and the conditions of the covenant as it's being read aloud to them. So renewal of the covenant. And then we see a long description of all of the amazing things that Josiah does to clean the temple of all the idolatrous stuff that Manasseh had put in there. And then remove priests, altars and high places and things that were all around Judah, all torn down, burned up. He's really very thorough, and we see a long description there of all the things that he does to purify. And then, as they're reading the word, they're like, oh my gosh, we have not been celebrating the Passover. Notice verse 22, neither in the days of the judges who led Israel, nor during the days of the kings of Israel and the kings of Judah had any such Passover been observed. So this whole time, no one is observing the Passover. Crazy. So Josiah is the first guy who's like, let's actually do what the Bible says. Crazy. Nevertheless, verse 26, the Lord did not turn away from the heat of his fierce anger. So in spite of all these wonderful things that Josiah does, Judah still has to experience the consequence of breaking the terms of the covenant. So he's going to do that actually through Pharaoh Necho, who allies with Assyria. He comes up, and Josiah marches against him and sadly is killed in battle against the Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiahaz becomes king, and Pharaoh is not down with that. So he actually arrests Jehoiahaz and sends him away. And then he puts Eliakim into power and changes his name. Why? I don't know. Actually, I could probably look up the meaning of their names. I'm sure it means something, but changes his name to Jehoiakim, and he becomes like the Pharaoh's puppet king. So he's just doing whatever Pharaoh wants. Actually, I'm curious, so let's look this up. Blue Letter Bible, we're 2 Kings 23:34. Let's see. 2 Kings 23:34. Out of curiosity. Let's see. Baby made Eliakim. Eliakim means what? God raises or God sets up. And then what's Jehoiakim mean? Jehoiakim means Jehovah raises up. That's interesting. Doesn't seem like much of a meaning difference. And yeah, actually, let's listen to it.
Strong's H3079. Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. From abbreviated. What is this? Jehovah. Fascinating. Okay. I still don't know why his name was changed, but it was changed and he became a puppet king. All right. So he was an evil king. We pop over to the next chapter, and now Babylon has become more powerful than Assyria. At this time, Nebuchadnezzar, you guys know about him. We'll read a lot more about him in the future, especially in Daniel. But he is the king of Babylon. He invades the land, and that Jehoiakim now becomes his puppet king, his vassal. But he tries to rebel against Nebuchadnezzar, and that doesn't work well, and he dies. And now his kid Jehoiachin, I guess, becomes king, and he also does what's evil. Nebuchadnezzar advances on Jerusalem, lays siege to it, and Jehoiachin and all the nobles surrender to him. Jehoiachin is taken prisoner. Nebuchadnezzar takes all the treasure from the temple and brings it to Babylon. The only people who are left in Jerusalem, in Judah, are the poor people. He doesn't particularly care about them, doesn't see any reason to exile them to Babylon. So Jehoiachin goes to Babylon, and all these strong people, the rich people, the famous people, and Nebuchadnezzar chooses Jehoiachin's uncle, Mattaniah, to become king, because someone has to be his puppet king, because he's not going to stay there in Jerusalem. He's going to go around the world taking more territory. And he also changes his name to Zedekiah. I don't know why they changed their names when they put a puppet into place. So Kings, let's see, 24:17, 2 Kings 24:17. I'm just curious, 2 Kings 24:17. Is there a significance to these name meanings? Let's see, made Mattaniah, which means gift of Jehovah, and changes his name to Zedekiah, which means Jehovah's righteous. So, I mean, it's still like a religious name, yet I don't see the significance to the changing of the name. He becomes king. He's evil, womp womp, but he also tries to rebel against the king of Babylon. In response to that rebellion, Nebuchadnezzar marches against the city and sieges it. So, if you see here, it's in the 9th year of his reign that Nebuchadnezzar responds to Zedekiah's rebellion, and the city's under siege until the 11th year. So they are sieged for 2 years. That's 2 years. Nothing can come from the outside. So eventually they're running out of food, right? So they are really hungry and thirsty. There's no food. Excuse me. They break through the wall, and Zedekiah runs away with soldiers, and they capture him. They kill his sons in front of him, and then they poke out his eyes, and they take him as a prisoner to Babylon. At this point, this is sad, Nebuchadnezzar burns down the temple, the palace, every important building, and the wall around Jerusalem is torn down. Obviously, the wall, that's going to be the story of Nehemiah, and the temple will later be rebuilt. We will see, but we've talked about this, the presence of the Lord never fills the temple again. And as far as we know, this is as this temple is destroyed, this is the end of the Ark of the Covenant. There is no more Ark of the Presence. So the presence of God, both existential, but also the material, thing that represents the presence of God, neither of those will be in the new temple that's built. All the stuff, the sea, the shovels, the wicks, everything is taken away. Everything is taken away. And but Nebuchadnezzar still needs somebody to rule for him while he's out of town. So he chooses this guy, Gedaliah. Gedaliah doesn't appear to be like in the line of David. He's just a dude who's chosen. Obviously, Nebuchadnezzar cares nothing about the Davidic covenant. So he puts this guy into power. But there is somebody who has royal blood and is like, no, there's no way I'm going to let this random dude. So Ishmael, son of Nethaniah with royal blood, came and assassinated Gedaliah. But now they're like, whoa, hold on, that was Nebuchadnezzar's chosen person. So then they all run away to Egypt because they're afraid Nebuchadnezzar is going to get mad at them. So the remnant, not all of them, especially not the poor people, but yeah, they all ran away to Egypt. And if you remember, the king Jehoiachin had been taken off into exile. And now we're going to end the book of 2 Kings with this statement. It says, as Jehoiachin, king of Judah, was in exile in Babylon, he was released from prison. And then Nebuchadnezzar spoke kindly to him, gave him a seat of honor, higher than those of the other kings that were with him in Babylon. He put off his prison clothes, and for the rest of his life, he ate regularly at the king Nebuchadnezzar's table. And day by day, the king gave Jehoiachin a regular allowance as long as he lived. And this is the last sentence of the book of 2 Kings. And I think the reason that this is the last sentence is to give a little glimmer of hope. It looks terrible. Israel, the kingdom of Israel, has been sent into exile to Assyria, never to return again. The southern kingdom of Judah has been sent into exile into Babylon. And they don't know the future, ? To return again, who knows? But even in the midst of this horrible darkness, the real blood king, the person who is a legitimate inheritor of the throne, is being treated kindly while in exile. So glimmer of hope, ? And that's the end of the book. So I'll pick up again tomorrow. Okay, so it is the 4th of July and there are fireworks going off and my dog is crying because he's terrified. So hopefully there's not too much distracting noise, but wanted to go ahead and finish up this video. Honestly, there's not a ton to say. If you're very diligent like Dan and Karen, you can look up, the meaning to all of these lists. But at the pace at which we're reading the Bible, it's okay to just skim lists. Skimming list is totally acceptable. I'm going to share my screen here. We're sharing the screen. Share. Something interesting to know, I encourage you actually for this one to watch the Bible Project video. First of all, for us, we have First Chronicles and Second Chronicles, but it's not two separate books. It's really just one book. And the separation point is actually just they came to the end of the scroll, and then they had to complete the remainder of the book on another scroll. So it was really more a problem of the length of the scroll than anything else. So it's not really two separate books, it's just one. Another thing that's interesting to note is that for us, it comes right after Kings, and so this feels extremely repetitive. We've all just read this, and now we're going to read it again. So it's kind of annoying for us where it's been placed. However, 50% of the information in Chronicles is actually new information. So they're going to elaborate with additional stories that we haven't heard yet. So it is going to be 50% new, but it's also going to be 50% repeat. The other thing that's interesting is, here we have Kings where the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom were just sent into exile. And even though what we're about to read is going to be a repeat, so we're going to rehear these same stories, but just with more elaboration than we heard them before. But this book is being written after the exile, after they've returned back. Now again, the Northern Kingdom does not return, but the Southern Kingdom does return. And this book, Chronicles, is written after their return. And I'll point out at least one of the clues in this week's reading of the timing of this book. So again, skimming. I have no thing to say for all of Wednesday's reading. Chronicles, First Chronicles 1 through 3. It is a list. It's a genealogy. Starts with Adam. Lots of people. Lots of people. Something to note, however, and actually I'll draw attention to this in a minute, but the timing of this is being written after they've been in exile for 70 years. During that time, that's when the Pharisees came into existence. That's when synagogues came into existence, and the purpose of synagogues and Pharisees is to protect Jewish language, Jewish culture, Jewish history, Jewish religion from being lost while they're living in a foreign land. So in a lot of ways, Chronicles kind of makes sense because it's for this, following generation who doesn't know any of this. So they need to hear it again. They need to know about the history of their people. So even though for us it's a little annoying, but for them it would have made sense. So again, all the people, genealogy, all of that. All right, great. And again, same thing, Chronicles 2, a long list of people. We've read all these stories. They're great. All of these people, they are important. They're important to God's story, what he is going to do with his people. But we have read this. Okay, all these people, great. Chapter 3, we have read all of this. Where it's now trying to get us, to David. Yes, David is the main character in Chronicles, especially this first part of the scroll, First Chronicles. And then notice, royal line after the exile. So in order for the author to have this information, you can see that this is being written after they're in exile and now they're returning back to the promised land. All right. Okay. Chapter 4, even more lists. Judah, because that's the southern kingdom, because the northern kingdom did not come back. All right. Lots of you are familiar with this prayer of Jabez. you know, in the Bible, it doesn't play a prominent role, but people have made a whole thing about this prayer right here. That you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me and keep me from harm so that I will be free from pain. And God granted his request. There you go. All right, more list and 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 list. All right, and they killed the remaining Amalekites. There you go. All right, on to chapter 5. There's this just interesting explanation why Reuben is excluded from, even though he's the firstborn, because he, slept with his dad's wife. He is, doesn't get the birthright of the firstborn, and instead that passed to Joseph. I always like to draw attention to any time, it brings out this idea of outcry, and we see it in chapter 5, verse 20. They're fighting, and then God delivered them. Why did he deliver them? Because they cried out. He heard their prayers because they trusted in him. I thought that was pretty. Yeah, God he hears us when we cry. That is good news. More lists of people, list of people, a list of people. If your name was on the list, it would be very exciting. People, lots of people. In chapter 7, more people. In chapter 8, it's more people. Okay, chapter 9, here we go. Chapter 9, this is when it starts to get a little juicy. All right, so all Israel was listed in the genealogies recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. They were taken captive to Babylon because of their unfaithfulness. All right, so this is why they were sent into exile. It wasn't just that, kingdoms rise and fall, but it's because they were unfaithful. They broke the covenant. And according to the terms of the covenant, the result is that they lose the land. But they've been careful to record these genealogies in order to preserve that information while they are gone. Another clue for us that this is being written after the return is here in verse 2. Now the first to resettle on their own property are, and then another list. So this is referring to people who have come back from Babylon and are resettling in the promised land. And then more list. Cool thing about gatekeepers, I kind of like that. And list, and Saul became king. All right, so we've got Saul in chapter 10, the battle with the Philistines, where he's wounded so severely that he wants someone to finish him off. The guy won't do it, so he falls on his own sword, killing himself. And then the whole thing about, they took his body and put it in the temple of Dagon. And notice, again, Saul died. Why? Not just because of random circumstances. He died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. Notice how that echoes that 9:1, their unfaithfulness, and now 10:13, his unfaithfulness. So, appointing the Israelites who have come back from exile to not view themselves as just the result of random circumstances, but that their experience will be a result of whether or not they're faithful to the Lord. So Saul here is the anti-example, right? He did not keep the word of the Lord. He consulted witches. He did not inquire of the Lord, and therefore, as a result, the Lord put him to death and turned over his kingdom to Jesse. David, son of Jesse. All right, so now we've got David becoming king, and notice again just the same emphasis. So in verse 9, David became more and more powerful. Why? Because he was just a great strategist or whatever, a great personality? No, because the Lord Almighty was with him. So just they're teaching this new generation, if you will be faithful to the Lord, if you remain with the Lord, things will go well with you. That is the terms of the covenant. If you stick with him, all will go well. If you are unfaithful to him, all will go poorly. So don't do that. We see it again in verse 14. They're in this battle in the middle of the field. They defended it. They struck the Philistines down. But it's the Lord who brought the great victory. Just a lot of repetition. And now we've got this list of the mighty men, all these mighty men, and the wild things that they did. And that's the end of our reading for this week. So we'll see y'all next Sunday. Have the best 4th of July. Bye.